Rick here from Canada's National Firearms Association. I'm at the Calgary Gun Show today with Teri Bryant, Alberta CFO. Teri has been doing an outstanding job ever since she took the helm at the CFO. I just wanted to touch base with her today and see what's going on in Alberta today. There's been a lot of changes in the last little while. Teri, can you tell us what's going on?
Okay, well, I guess there's several things that have happened recently. I testified with the Second Committee that was dealing with Bill C-21. So that was, I think, the last day of their hearings that are scheduled, but we don't know what exactly is going to be. You know, they may end up scheduling more hearings because Minister Mendocino has indicated he wants to reintroduce those pesky amendments that he had to withdraw because they were so bungled. Then, over the next few days, there will be hearings in the Supreme Court on our, I think it's going to happen in the Supreme Court building. I'm not sure exactly what level of court it is, on the challenges to the Ordering Council, in which we received permission from the court to have intervener status. We get intervener status as a matter of right on constitutional issues, but we had to argue the case for getting intervener status on the administrative law issues, which we did. So our very capable lawyer will be appearing there. The other thing, of course, that's big news is the Alberta Firearms Act, which has passed third reading and received royal assent. I think the first regulation, I think it's already been announced, and the second regulation will be out shortly. As you're probably aware, the Alberta Firearms Act is largely enabling legislation. So what it does is it gives the cabinet power to regulate certain things. And so in Saskatchewan, their act was more prescriptive. It laid out exactly what they were going to do. But we thought it was better to give us the ability to respond to what the feds do, because they can be a little sneaky sometimes.
Yes, they can.
And so it's better to be nimble and flexible and be able to respond to what they have, whatever they decide to throw at us. And that act, I think, it did two really big things. First thing is, as you know, I do a lot of things beyond what a traditional CFO does. I am responsible for supervising the administration of the Firearms Act, PALs, and authorizations of transport and so on in the province of Alberta. Although a lot of the PALs are done in Miramichi right now, something will be changing by the end of the year. But in addition to that, I had an expanded mandate to actually get beyond just administering the status quo and say, I mean, does the status quo make any sense? Very often the status quo doesn't make sense. And other CFOs, with the exception of Saskatchewan CFO Robert Freeberg, don't have the ability to comment on that.
Yeah.
So I had that ability, but it was by a mandate letter from a provincial minister. And what the Alberta Firearms Act did was it entrenched that expanded mandate and a bigger role for our office in legislation, so it's not just dependent on a minister's whim. Then the second thing that it did, it's important to recognize that we have to respect federal jurisdiction in the same way we want them to respect ours. And so we can't, it's not constitutionally possible for us to just tell the feds to go away on this issue, and much as we might like to wave a magic wand and tell them we can't do that, that's not within our sphere of influence. We can make sure that they are acting within their sphere of influence, sphere of competence, by means of things like the court challenges. But if they go ahead, and we can argue against those crazy ideas, but if they really push and decide, regardless of all evidence that this is a bad idea, that they're going to go ahead with it anyway, we can't stop that. However, what we can do is use our areas of jurisdiction around property rights and the administration of justice and so on to make sure that their actions do not jeopardize the safety of Albertans. And we do that in a number of ways. So, for example, we make sure that provincial resources are not diverted to the Minister of Justice has already done that. Made sure that we're not going to use provincial resources
Seizures,
for that.
etc.
Then, if they talk about this big seizure campaign, that could expose Albertans to several very serious risks. Because, first of all, if there are government people saying, I'm from the federal government, I'm here to collect your guns, well, what's to stop fraudsters from showing up on your doorstep and saying, I'm here to collect your guns?
Exactly.
So that's why we've had to institute a system of licensing seizure agents so that people will know that if somebody says they're from the feds, they really are, and that they have the necessary skills and background and integrity. Although integrity and a confiscation scheme are somewhat contradictory, but I guess you get the idea.
Yeah.
So it protects against that risk. Then there's also the risk of if they're doing this, they need to make sure that the firearms are properly stored and transported and so on, because you can imagine no legitimate group has been willing to step forward and participate in this confiscation scheme. So they may end up with some fly-by-night organization and not take proper safety. You can imagine a truckload of AR-15s. Yeah. The truck driver leaves the truck idling while he goes in to use the restroom, comes out, the truck is gone.
The infrastructure for something like that is mind-boggling.
It is, and it's never been done before.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's also that risk. And then the other risk, which I think is not even a risk, it's a certainty, is that the feds will offer inadequate compensation.
Oh.
And, we can't, as a provincial government, we can't step up and say, oh, well, they only gave you $1,000 for your $5,000 gun, we can't pay you the rest. But what we can do is we can have compensation committees where if you don't feel you got a fair deal, you can apply and get a proper valuation that then you could use either in a private action or in a class action suit to try and get money, or if there's enough people, it could even just be the court of public opinion. Like, you can imagine the story if there's 1,000 guns that are confiscated and the average compensation offered was only 20% of fair value. Yeah. This would be a news story that even the media might decide to cover.
And the irony of that is with C-21, when they attached the original OIC, there was no talk of compensation or a buyback or anything else. I think they were kind of trying to sneak it into C-21 because I don't know if they have the funds to compensate all people for all these firearms in Canada.
Well, it seems at times that the federal government is not excessively concerned about whether they have enough funds for anything. But certainly it would be a very substantial, if they were to offer proper compensation for the number of guns they're talking about, it would be a very substantial expenditure. Yeah. Because it's not just the compensation. If they give you $1,000, it doesn't cost the federal government $1,000 to give you $1,000. It probably costs them $5,000 to give you $1,000, because there's all the administration around it. Yeah. And so, even if they were only prohibiting and confiscating the guns that they have put on the order in council list, let alone any of these expanded lists they're talking about, I think it would probably cost at least $2 billion. In their last budget, they included $29 million, I think, for IT work to set up a system for compensation. Yes. Well, if they're not going to spend $29 billion on a computer system and use it once, if they spend $29 million to set up a compensation system, they're going to use it again and again and again. They want to get money. They want to get value for their money, even when they're spending it on something worthless. So they are likely, to me, that $29 million signals that they are likely to want to confiscate this group of firearms now, and then there'll be another group, and it won't be long, I'm sure, before the handguns are on that group, as well as whatever rifles.
That seems to be the common consensus, Terry, that this is just a tiered approach to getting rid of all firearms in Canada, if you look at it a little harder, and I think a lot of people are on that page also.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you take one layer of the onion off at a time, and next thing you know, you're down to a little pearl onion you could drop in your, well, I'm not sure what kind of cocktails you put pearl onions in, but anyway, it's much easier to eat an elephant one bite at a time.
Absolutely. Anyway, thanks a lot, Terry. I appreciate the comments and the insight from Alberta. You're doing an outstanding job, and Canada's National Firearms Association. Freedom, safety, responsibility.